This is without a doubt going to be the most ambitious project I have ever tackled. Making a short film. And action. In this video I am going to be taking you behind the scenes on a short film I shot in a magical place called Iceland. And to really put the pressure on, in the end I am lucky enough to be able to show this to some incredibly successful filmmakers, such as, but not only, the director of The Cook. And I'm doing this all without any professional equipment and $0 in the bag. But I really want to make this movie. I still can't believe I'm actually going to be showing this to the director of The Cook. I'm actually really nervous about this. Now, making a short film is a lot of work. Before we even fly to Iceland, I have to have come up with a story, have written a script, made shot lists, gotten all the costumes. What else? Gathered all the equipment that I need to film this. So I got a lot to do until then. I always sort of thought I don't have that much professional stuff, but it's turned out to be quite a lot now overall this time, and also some of it is borrowed just for this project. In order to graduate my school in the last year, every student has to make one ginormous project. This project will be fully graded and partially determine whether or not you graduate. So instead of writing about something that no one really cares about, as I usually would, I want this short film to be my project. So now this has to work out. But obviously, this being my very first short film I'm ever going to make, there's no way I'm actually just flying all the way to Iceland just to make the short film. So this is a family vacation. We are all going there together, which is really, really cool. It was actually always, honestly, a dream of mine to go to Iceland. But yeah, that's just to be honest. As obviously, we're not going there for the film. I just want to really use this to try and make the best film possible while we are there in Iceland. Now, the exact time we were arriving in Iceland was also the first time in history that Switzerland made it to the quarterfinals in the European Championship. So we really wanted to watch this match.
Please work. We can't watch the match because we are in Iceland and it doesn't work in Iceland for some reason.
We have to connect, but it's not connecting because we don't have internet.
Besides that, our arrival was pretty much exactly how I would expect for Iceland though. So the first thing that happened was that there was no bus, and I don't know how to explain this, but it just all felt exactly like I expected Iceland to feel.
Can you quickly film me? Yeah, I feel like this is what Iceland is supposed to look like.
Was los? Outtakes.
So, when I arrived in Iceland 2 months after starting this project, I had already decided that because of how different Iceland looks, I wanted to make a fantasy short film. I had come up with a story, I'd written a script, and even managed to shotlist most of the scenes. And even more importantly, I managed to convince my family to act in this short film.
the narrative.
Yeah, and the voiceover.
Okay.
Everything was real.
Okay. A young girl of 15 years is sitting in some high grass under a tree, reading a book. The portal opens in front of the girl, and before she could react, the book pulls her through it and out the other side in a large field of vast nothingness. Exterior, large field.
Leave me alone! It sounded like Anna.
Yeah.
How do you say it?
hand over the book.
No, you're not the emperor. So the girl's hand lands 2 meters away from both of them, who are now laying on top of the ground. In this moment, there is a bright flash of light. They stop fighting, and the witch appears about 10 meters from them.
Hand over the book.
We are now trying to go all the way up there to film the first scene.
I have to force you there. I don't even speak. Leave me alone! Yes!
This is the very first shot that we will be filming. We are starting with scene 2 because scene 1 can't be filmed here, so it's not in chronological order. We're now going to do scene 1 of Anna falling out of the portal on the other side. Okay, let's try. Now in this scene I needed a shot where you could see a picture of the landscape in the book so that the viewer realizes she fell into the world of the book. However, there was no way to print a picture over there in Iceland, so what I ended up doing is taking a clean plate of just the landscape and then recorded her actually holding the book once we were back at home again in front of a green screen, and then compositing these two. Hopefully no one notices that.
Stretches out her hand and summons the book. It comes flying straight out of the girl's hand to the witch's stretched out hand.
You will regret that.
Now for this shot I used a similar trick. Obviously what I needed was a shot of the book flying through the air. So what I did was first just film the background whipping by without the book, and then just filmed around the book to simulate the changing of the angles. And it's important to do this right on location so that the light and the reflections on the book actually match the background.
And just as suddenly as she came, she disappeared.
Would you sit down? You're making me nervous. I'm making you nervous? A literal witch just portaled out of the sky to steal my book, and I'm making you nervous? Steal my book.
They have to learn the lines because they can't do it yet.
When are you? Listen, I don't know about you, but I need to get out of here.
Now, one of the biggest problems we had on set was that we never had enough time. And first, that's because I planned to shoot way too much in way too little time, but also a big reason for that was definitively... Perfect.
Yeah, she was laughing. Nice.
What is the turn around? It's 1 kilometer per hour.
Jag kan ont.
I thought...
Where from have you acquired that book?
You have to do it just once without laughing. If it doesn't look perfect, doesn't matter. Just laughing doesn't work. Yeah, it just seemed like every time we tried to start a take, someone just burst out laughing.
Switched. I managed to switch. Why do I always forget that? I was able to.
Alright, we just finished the first scene, and I mean it's 1 o'clock in the morning right now, which I know that seems crazy, but yeah, it's Iceland, it never gets dark here. But no, it feels really crazy. It was so much fun, and at the same time so much stress, so much also just like, I don't know, it felt really great. But that being said, I feel like right now I can't tell you whether I absolutely nailed it and it looks amazing and we got everything that we needed, or if I messed everything up. I feel it's all a little bit of a blur right now for me. Maybe because it's way too late right now, but yeah, it could be that that I messed some things up. Actually, probably I messed some things up. I mean, this is the very first time I'm doing something like this. I feel like I've never nailed something like this in the first time But yeah, even if I did mess up some things, or it doesn't look exactly the way I wanted to, or there's some technical errors, whatever, just I mean, I've never put this much preparation into anything that I did, and so it just feels really, really good to finally have the first things that I've filmed for this. So yeah, it feels really, really good to have something done now. And I mean, yeah, I don't know, I'm really happy right now, but also really, really tired. I can't sleep right now because I feel like I'm still just processing everything that just happened. Oh, there's mosquitoes everywhere. But yeah, it's a little bit of a surreal feeling, actually.
So I was definitely right when I said that I probably made quite a few mistakes, because on the next day when I checked all the footage, there were quite a few shots that were just completely missing. And again, the problem is that this was first and foremost a family vacation, so I didn't really have that much time to reshoot anything. I actually didn't even know if I would manage to film the entire thing at all. Reshoots were kind of just completely out of the question. So I can't lie, there was actually a time while shooting this where I had so little hope of finishing this entire thing that I completely stopped filming any behind the scenes. I thought there is no way I'm actually going to manage to even just finish this short film. And thinking that I promised to show this film to all of these successful filmmakers, I was really, really disappointed in myself. And to add to all of these problems, it just was raining nearly the entire second week. But in the end, we just used every single little chance we got to film absolutely anything. And I somehow managed to film every scene, at least in some shape or form.
Okay, ready.
What do I have to do?
What did I say, man?
It's a trap. A trippy trap. What do I do? I saw. What do you mean? It's literally right there. We just have to get the books together and we can go home. I started reading the books.
Behind the scenes. Anna's just not allowed to laugh.
I know you're close up right now.
Oh, okay.
You're so busy, but just first that direction and then over there.
You have to go like this, mommy.
And the rest of the scenes were basically a lot more of the same as the first scene, so I'm not going to show every single scene here, but there were some interesting shots that I can still quickly maybe share with you. For an example, this shot right here. This is the last scene we filmed, and without a doubt my absolute favorite scene of the movie.
So getting this shot right here was actually quite a bit more complicated than you might have thought. So obviously what we needed was just this one single tree here standing in the middle of nowhere, and then what makes it really difficult, the direction that the background would be good, we also needed the sun to be rising exactly there. But even here in Basel I didn't really find just a single tree.
Mama, what's the time?
7:45.
Very, very early in the morning, and we're here now. That's the tree that we will try to film this at.
So as you can see in the behind the scenes, the actual location actually looked quite a bit different, and it was almost raining, but very, very overcast. There was no way that we were actually going to see a sunrise.
The problem is just to be sitting higher up so that you can see her, and she's not in front of the trees there for the camera. So we're trying to put as much stuff here that she can sit high up.
So these were the problems that I was facing on set. So I just decided to completely ignore the position of the sun and just chose the best angle in which there would be the most amount of separation between the actual tree here and the background. And then what I did in post is actually this entire part of the image here, all of this, is actually AI generated. So this part of the tree and this entire landscape over here didn't look like this. I had to add this because what was really standing here would have been way too distracting. And then we had this frame, but there was still no sun in the shot. So I had a last minute idea that I could actually just add a lens flare over here using DaVinci Resolve and make that lens flare all the way warm and orange, and so that it would look kind of like a sun. And I think it works really well. So this is technically not even the sun, this is not here at all, it's actually just an anamorphic lens flare that I added on top of this shot.
And then for these next shots I just used this same cheap little light from the side to simulate the sun, because obviously the sun wasn't actually there. And for this shot here I then used that light with a blue gel to simulate the light that should be coming from the portal.
And this shot here is a good example for what I call these hidden visual effects. So obviously if you look at this, hopefully you didn't think that anything was altered at all, but there was actually like a complete fence all the way along over here that I removed using generative fill in Photoshop. There was, I think, a whole hut or something over here. There's a whole bunch of different things, some signs up here that I just removed in Photoshop. And the reason why this is possible is because this was actually shot on a tripod, which means that even though these parts here that I just circled are now technically just an image, this image will always perfectly align with the actual video. And all of these shots were color graded using Dehancer, so that's one thing that this was really good for. These images, obviously they will have no grain, but the video will actually have some grain over it, so using Dehancer I could just add some film grain to the entire image to just sort of blend the seams of the images and the actual video together so that you won't notice it as much. And talking about Dehancer, somehow miraculously they are actually the ones that reached out to me and they asked me if I'm interested in a sponsorship. And so first I was relatively critical because I know it's quite an expensive product, but they sent it to me to try out for free, and I have to say it's really easy to use. You can add stuff like film grain, lens flares, halation, all of these amazing things that just make your videos go from looking really digital to looking like it was actually shot on film. So I'm really pleasantly surprised with Dehancer. You can go into the link in the description, use my code to get 10% off of all the products. Yeah, it's really crazy actually. I have no idea how they found me. Obviously we're still a very small channel, but yeah, I was very happy to hear that someone like Dehancer actually knows about my channel. Yeah, if you want to make your videos look a little bit more film-ish, click the link. It's a really good product.
This short film has a total of 23 visual effects shots. 5 of them are shots that you won't even know that there was any visual effects in them. And the rest of them are much more obviously visual effects shots. So I'm going to just quickly talk about how exactly I made these.
Now this shot here is probably the most visual effects heavy shot of the entire film. Now first of all, this is how it looked before I edited anything. This is the raw file. So immediately you can see all of these mountains back here. This is all generated through Photoshop generative fill. And then what you can see also, obviously the portal, this here, you could see these 2 tripods standing there, and this is actually really important. Every time you can actually see a portal in the frame, I used one of these tripods to simulate where the portal is. This made it not just easier for the sorry, my printer is going crazy. This made it not just easier for the actors to know where the portal is going to be, that they didn't just have to imagine some portal standing there. It also made it a lot easier for me in editing because I had exact references from, you know, the dimensions and the angles at which the portal actually will have to be in the final image. So yeah, always used 2 of these tripods for the portal. And then as you can see over on this side here, there was a blue light. This is again the same old cheap light. This is also very important. I'd say this is actually the most important light of the entire film, because these blue assets here, the lightsabers and the lightning effects and everything that I added over onto the image, these are obviously not going to actually reflect any light off of the surroundings. And so without this blue light up here simulating that light that's going to be emitted from these effects, it would just look incredibly fake, because the floor would not be lit at all, she would not be lit at all. It would just look like these effects have been just layered over the image, which obviously is exactly what happened, but thanks to this light that I set up here, it looks like it's actually part of the image and everything sort of blends together really nicely. I had a lot of fun trying these out, learning all about these visual effects. It's very exciting, and yeah, it's crazy how much you can do with just simple overlays and effects. None of this is 3D, I have no idea how to use 3D, this is just all very simple effects that can get you some really good results, in my opinion.
Now, of course, I could go way further into detail of the editing process. Maybe I'm going to do that in an extra video, but at the end of the day, I now have my finished short film, World Without End. So what I think I actually learned from this is that I should have much rather chosen something that is way simpler and easier to shoot, and instead still has a very clear story and message behind it, because I think that might have gotten a little bit lost behind all of this in this short film. But that's just my opinion. I'm sure you remember that I said I'm going to show this to some incredibly successful filmmakers so that they can rate it and give their feedback on it. So let's see what the professionals have to say about this. I showed my film to Blake Simpson, an award-winning filmmaker, Vincent Bossel, the director of The Cook, and Emilian Gür, who is responsible for the selections of a film festival in Switzerland.
And the feedback of all three of them was actually really amazing and helpful, and also very interesting how everyone sort of looked at this from a different angle. So first I had a call with Blake Simpson, and we talked for a really long time. He gave way more feedback than I could just put into this video right now. It was just a lot of small technical hints and suggestions, like for example it was his idea to alter the voice of the witch so that she doesn't sound quite as human.
I mean, I have mostly positive feedback. I think the negative would be just like some work on the VFX. I mean, you were very limited anyways, and you're quite new in editing. The color gradient as well, and in some places it's super nice, like the opening shot and a lot of the daytime stuff. The nighttime stuff, you obviously lose the blacks and the shadows, and it looks a bit like flat. But you filmed on your...
All on my camera, yeah.
Yeah, bro, it's amazing what you can do. Did you film it in S-Log?
Yeah, my camera doesn't support log.
Oh right, you have the Canon or the...
Yeah.
He also told me to edit some other parts of, especially the sound of the film. Clearly the sound of this film was not exactly the strength, so with all of his hints I could just sort of refine the entire sound part a little bit. Then Emilian Gür, he pointed me into the direction of a Zurich film festival, which is really amazing. I'm going to submit my film there. That was an amazing hint. And then last but not least, from Vincent. And this was again a very sort of eye-opening conversation.
You need to understand, I think, that intensity is not always big effects, you know? Intensity, and you love Dune so much, right? Dune has those big moments, right? But it also has like the peaceful desert and just the character looking just like at the horizon, you know, and nothing too crazy happening actually. And that's also life. And in sci-fi it should also exist. And I think I see in your film that you're just trying to give us many things, you know, you're trying to give us energy, fight action scenes, all the things that excite you and that you love. That's great. But understand, I think, that intensity is also found in the quiet times, sometimes with no music, sometimes with a more surprising choice of music. If you use just like a sound that is what you expect of a movie like this, you know, some aerial vocals, some big like whatever is action, you're never surprised, you're never giving another layer to your story, you understand?
Yeah.
So I think you need to be able to find also the courage to let your story breathe a bit, let it be told by just the picture and not the words. Ask yourself, is this dialogue bringing anything to the story? She says maybe 5 or 6 times, but it's my book. We get that from the first image, since she's reading her book. So this dialogue is pretty much useless for the whole story. That's all the kind of things that I want to, invite you to think about.
Basically, he said there were a lot of scenes and also parts of dialogue that really didn't need to be in the film, and I actually never really thought about it in that way. I was always just really scared that the people wouldn't get the story. But what he was saying is that mystery is okay, not understanding everything is fine, and also you shouldn't be insulting the intelligence of your viewers, because they can put one and one together, and also they have an imagination. So if everything is not 100% clear, then all the better. They have their entire imagination to sort of build onto this world that you made. You always have to think of what does the viewer really need to know, and then anything more than that is probably just going to sort of dim down your film and really reduce the quality of the overall story. And I absolutely agree with what he said there. I think also that is definitely still a problem with the short film that I made right now.
But let me maybe just start by saying congrats on making the film and being courageous enough to go into a sci-fi direction, trying some stuff with the special effects, ballsy, and respect for that. That's great. But you are at, I think, this stage of your early career in cinema, just like I was, and I'm still struggling with these same exact questions of how much to cut and go to the essential of the story, and how much you can reinvent it also at the editing. You need to get to that point eventually if you keep making movies, is having the courage and also the distance with your subject and your craft to cut it and really let go of all the things that don't work as much. Try to make a better movie inside of it, because your movie is unbalanced in all sorts of way, and you can make a better movie inside this movie.
Oof. So, it turns out making short films is really, really difficult. And while, as you've now seen, not everything went perfectly, I still definitely do want to say that this was an amazing experience for me. I was able to show this to my entire family, kind of like a first screening, and I'm telling you, just the feeling of actually having made a short film like this and being able to show it to everyone is just such an amazing feeling.
So yeah, obviously this short film is really far away from perfect, and if you look at it as just a short film, then it's also far away from good. But if you look at it as a first short film, which it is for me, then I'm actually really proud of it, and I think it turned out, all things considered, really well. I look at this kind of like a film school for myself, like my own film school. Yeah, this is my introduction into narrative filmmaking, and it's only going to get better from here on out.